Give me some of that long. Hard. Rock. What kind of show do you think this is? Geesh. Classic rock, hard rock, and heavy metal from the 70s, 80s, and 90s. Plus, stick around for Plug-In, where we support independent artists one song at a time. Take it like a man from a woman who knows music. It's time for RockGasms with Jenn Mitchell. Welcome, and please enjoy my extended edition of Metalhead Extreme Radio's news report with Operation Mindcrime's lead vocalist, Geoff Tate. I'm your host, Jenn Mitchell, and for the next hour, I'll be unlocking everything you ever wanted to know about their new album, The Key. So slide it in, take a turn, and get ready to see what awaits you behind the door. Coming with you with track 2 off The Key, this is Burn on Metalhead Extreme Radio.
Computer, query number 1. Give me suggestions for system termination.
Hi, Jen. This is Geoff.
Hi, Geoff. How are you?
Oh, good. Oh, good. I'm in Ireland today.
Really?
So, yeah, you wouldn't believe this place I'm talking to, and it's an old theater that was built like in 1921.
As long as it's not
great.
haunted there. Lots of haunted places out there, I hear.
Yeah, I don't see any ghosts yet.
Very good. Well, I've got some pretty intense questions for you. Hope you're ready for it.
Oh, maybe I better get a drink.
What time is it out there? You're about, 6 hours ahead, I think, of...
It's 6
States?
p.m. in the evening.
Yep. All right.
Where are you at? In the East Coast somewhere?
No, I'm in Chicago. I actually met you last summer at your very last show under the old band name at Tailgaters in Bolingbrook.
Oh, yeah, I remember you. Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
you're saying that. No, you've got an eidetic memory, I think.
Yep, it's pretty good still.
I'm very honored, though, to sit down with you again, and equally honored to talk to you about your brand new album, The Key. Before we go any deeper into your album and Operation Mindcrime as a whole, I kind of want to discuss with you who plays with you on The Key. The lineup is Kelly Gray, Randy Gaines, Simon Wright, and Brian Tichy, who were with you on your last tour while you were still under your previous name. But you're also joined now by Scott, I think it's Moten?
It's Moten.
I've heard it pronounced both ways. You just never know. Good to check. Dave
Yeah,
Ellefson,
true.
John Moyer, and Scott Mercado.
Uh-huh.
How's it been to converge all of those talents together on this album?
It's been great. Everybody involved with the record has approached it with enthusiasm and commitment and really creative ideas. Of course, that's what you dream of with any project you're working on, that you have people involved that are interested in what you're doing and interested in pushing it along, adding their ideas. So, I was just really, really enjoying the project.
Right. Geoff, I know you're not really one to revisit the past, both personally and musically. I would be remiss, though, if I didn't touch upon just a few things that led up to The Key. You've stated before that life is a journey which leads you to constant innovation and experimentation. If I were to take your album in a part of all sums when you hear all 12 tracks on The Key, do you hear any remnants of your previously recorded music that fans might be able to identify with? And if so, which parts are those?
When you're a songwriter, your style continues to follow you. There's things that are just kind of inherent in what you do that work their way into other songs or other records. It's just your musicality, how you think, and your note choices, your phrasing, your the chord progressions that you find pleasing. It's called style. So that's probably evident, I think, to most people that would listen to the album. Although what I've tried to do on this record and the records that follow this, the other two, is to really stretch that out and push that beyond where I've gone before, mostly in the area of arrangement, kind of pushing the arrangements to a new musical level for me, and getting away from what I've done in the past, trying to reach a new plateau.
And here to be sure that we're all taken to the next plateau, here's Operation Mindcrime with Reinventing the Future.
Query number 2. Should the code be given to the world or sold for profit?
You had said of The Key, I've opened my eyes and ears to new standards and arrangements, and that's what keeps things fresh and exciting as an artist. But then you also went on to say that you like the freeing style of being able to write without constraints, adding this album is linear without directly leading the listener through a concise storyline. So when you mention new standards and arrangements in that, what might those revelations be in conjunction with The Key, and what might surprise your fans on this album versus anything you've done in the past?
Wow, I said all that? I sound pretty smart.
I know you do, don't you? You made me sound smart, so kudos for that.
I always find it kind of difficult and challenging to explain music because I believe that, music is a personal experience that the listener, experiences on their own. And typically we want to be affected by a song or a melody. I want to be affected emotionally by music, and that's what I look for when I'm writing is this chord progression something that grabs me? And that was kind of the judgment that I used and Kelly, who co-produced the record with me, used when we were putting the songs together was how does it make us feel? Does it really hit us in the face? Does it bring us to tears? Does it make us feel exhilaration, when it should? Because it's a story and you want the story to follow a path and keep the listener interested and I don't know, just be dynamic because stories and life, they're not necessarily linear. They're very dynamic.
Right.
Did I answer your question?
You did. You had mentioned things kind of being put in people's faces, and that's kind of a nice segue into another really important question I think people would be interested to know. First of all, everyone knows that the Key, or most people do know, that the Key is the first of 3 of your albums that you intend to release in succession. It does bring your own signature progressive rock roots, but it's intertwined with lyrics that force the listener to face their own thoughts and beliefs about the state of our world. How much does it have to do with what's currently going on in our world that affects your songwriting in terms of nonfiction versus rhetoric and imagination?
Oh, wow. Good question.
Thank you.
And my answer is, I don't know.
Uh-oh. You can't do that to me after that.
Yeah, I don't know. I have been completely locked away in the studio, not paying attention to anything else that's going on in the world. And I've been concentrating on the story. I think it's very easy, or maybe not so easy in some cases, but there is a tendency to kind of, read between the lines in songs because that style of, songwriting, it's not like you're writing a novel and you're detailing every nuance of every thought. It's kind of broad strokes in a lot of senses. So you can kind of interpret a song a number of different ways. And believe me, I've heard a lot of interpretations of my songs over the years from people, and it fascinates me. It absolutely fascinates me. And that led me to my statement about how I think that we all hear music differently,
Well, let's see how you'd interpret this next song off of the Key. Here's Operation Mindcrime with Ready to Fly.
It will change everything. I think I'm ready.
I suppose because I tend to write lyrics, at least from probably more of a futurist standpoint, it always finds its way into my lyrics. I can't help it. It's part of what I do, I guess.
Right. Well, I'm kind of glad that you brought up the word futuristic because there's a futuristic wonderment to it, and it's told through each song. But there's also that definite musical landscape that drives that feeling throughout it as well. Your segues and passages found during the song's choices, discussions in a smoke-filled room, on cue, and an ambush of sadness kind of solidified that point for me. How important were these shorter tracks in terms of propelling your album from start to finish, and what inspired you to create those?
Yeah, those are very important to me. They're the links that take you from one idea to the next idea, and along the way, you can also establish some important information regarding the storyline. You can kind of paint a sonic picture, so to speak.
And here with one of those links, or sonic pictures if you prefer, is Discussions in a Smoke-Filled Room, followed by Life or Death off of the Key from Operation Mindcrime. Let's roll it.
I know he invented the damn thing. But what if he went missing? Well,
And funny enough, somebody pointed this out to me the other day. The titles of all the tracks on the record actually tell a story.
They kind of do,
And
yeah.
it's kind of interesting anyway. It'll probably make more sense as the other albums are released, but you might want to keep that in mind when you're looking at them next time.
Right. And I like how you also worded that about the sonic picture aspect of the whole thing, because in addition to that, this album also is offering several different tones and styles that maybe people who haven't followed your music throughout the years may have missed out on or are hearing for the first time right now, including spoken word, dialogue, technologically based sound effects, and at times a dulcimer is played as well. Was it your intention to project recorded performance art in a sense by infusing those elements, or was there something else behind those musical choices you made?
There's definitely a method to the madness. Yeah. It's kind of like what I mentioned earlier. A story is dynamic, and it shouldn't just have the same instrumentation all the way through. The music shouldn't be the samey at all. It should be dynamic and changing within to best interpret the story. I'm glad you mentioned that dulcimer performance. That's Scott Mercado who performed that. It's just a beautiful, beautiful piece. He did a fantastic job on that. And it was one of those kind of wonderful performances that just kind of happened, real organically. And he was just in the right vibe. And we hit the record button, and that was like a first take, that just worked perfectly.
Proving to us just how beautifully it all works together. Here's Kicking in the Door featuring Scott Mercado on dulcimer.
That song, we all felt just kind of begged for that kind of texture. And then when he started playing it, it was like, oh yeah, that's right. We were right. It works really well.
Right. Well, in terms of marrying things together, whether it be the dulcimer with Scott on this album or things that you've done in the past, how do you reconcile the past to the present in terms of what Operation Mindcrime now stands for today?
I'm kind of afraid of definitions, really, or maybe not afraid, but leery of defining myself too much. Simply because once you start defining yourself and putting yourself in a little box, and kind of closes your audience off, in a sense, to what you might do next. I'd like it to be more open, and it's a long-winded way of saying I hate genres. I just hate it. Genres to me are like putting music in a competition-based medium, and music is art.
I think when you've got real art, that's when you can get a bunch of people who all have their own version of what's going on, and it keeps people engaged and guessing and wanting more. That's kind of how I see it. There's no distinct beginning, middle, and end. Kind of like this next song off of The Key. Here's The Stranger on MHX Radio. I know that there are a couple of your bandmates that sing lead on some of these songs, but
yeah,
I could tell maybe one of them where that happened on, and I believe that was Life or Death. Who else stepped in and did lead vocals on some of the other tracks in this?
Well, me, of course, on the majority of them. Mark Daly on Life or Death. Scott Motton on Kicking in the Door. And then Kelly Gray does a kind of a verse in one of the songs. Maybe it's Life. I think it's Life or Death.
In a world where it seems people want all eyes exclusively on them, you kind of know how that goes. You end up sharing this album fully with your respective bandmates. So outside of that, do you feel this world is led by ego in the mindset of me, me, me versus you and me in terms of your own worldview? I mean, it's true,
That's good. That's good.
How did that come into play, and what led to your decision of kind of just handing over the mic and letting them come in? I know that they had characters that you wanted to bring out. Was it just that, or was there something more behind that, driving that?
No, really, it's about telling the story for me. That's where my head is at.
That comes across very easily. And back to like 2 years ago, I think that was the first time I had interviewed you. I always identified your band and what you stood for as the thinking man's band. These aren't frivolous, shallow lyrics we're dealing with here. We're dealing with things that really make you stop and think, and not just on some surface level, like reevaluate where you are in life, where you're going in life, where you've been in life, and taking that on a journey with you, with your music kind of running through your head. That's why I like and am drawn to what you do. And I hope that anyone who's going to hear this album takes that along with them too and sees it that way, because to me it comes across very clearly.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I like what you just said there. Although I have to say that, again, I have written frivolous lyrics for songs because I like that too.
Right. There's nothing wrong with that. But overall, that's kind of what I get from you. That it's not just, boobs up on a stage that you're going to sing about or getting laid, or you might have those undertones in certain areas, but it's not so blatant, say like, and I'm not ripping on Steel Panther, but that's like a blatant, that's kind of what I'm kind of referring to. And you're very poetic in what you do. And I'd kind of said earlier, it's almost like listening to performance art. And that's really hard to translate, I think, musically. There's a point to what you're doing. I know that's kind of ironic since it seemed like I was going off the track, but I knew what I was saying there. There are points to what you're saying, and that's kind of what I get from you and your music. Now, to get us back on track are 2 more songs off of The Key, starting with Hearing Voices and then going into another one of those little links, or as Geoff liked to say, breadcrumbs along the way with On Cue. Many people will ask this and have come to me, but I kind of watch what was going on in your Facebook page and some of the reactions to what was put up, a couple of song teasers and what have you. We've kind of already answered this, but I should probably just kind of state it and get it one more time from you. Do you feel this album answers the inherent question of what is supposed to be unlocked by the key, or does it leave more questions than answers?
Oh, well, I hope it leaves more questions unanswered, because those are following in the next two albums. This album really is kind of an introduction. It introduces the four main characters, the conflict between the four characters. It's definitely not even close to the middle, and very far from the end.
So with that answer, do you kind of have an idea in your mind of where the next two albums are going to go about this, or are you still working on those? If you've got something,
absolutely.
Can you share a little bit with us? Give us kind of a preview of what to
Well,
expect?
I can't tell you anything about the story, because that would just ruin the whole thing.
Right.
I can tell you that the first album drops a lot of breadcrumbs for you to follow. The second album, we're at mix stage right now. In fact, when I get back from Ireland, we jump in the studio to finish the mixing of the record. And the third album, we've got mostly written. We're just wrapping up the last few songs before we mix it. I should have the whole project finished by November, if all goes well.
Well, that's life on your own terms, and I'm sure it's quite liberating, especially at this point where you're now under your new moniker, Operation Mindcrime. I know a lot of people are kind of looking at that.
Sure.
What do you hope that the takeaway from the key is going to be?
Gosh, I don't know. I don't really have any expectations. I don't mean this to sound egotistical or arrogant or anything, but I don't write music for other people, and I don't really know any musician that does. We write music to satisfy ourselves. It's an emotional journey, and one that you're, as a musician and as a writer, you're compelled to do. Now, you share it with the world, definitely, but your intent isn't for somebody to get something out of it. People will get something out of it if they find it. You just have to be happy with the act of creation and move on.
I think that's a very smart and astute way to look at it. Thank you so much, Geoff. It's an honor as always.
Take care. Bye-bye.
I also want to thank Geoff Albright of the Albright Entertainment Group for making this interview possible, as well as my friends here at mhxradio.com for providing the platform for the show. Special shout-outs to David Castagno and Robin Weiss over at Screamer Magazine for bringing this interview to me. If you'd like to view the article which was based upon the interview you just heard, go ahead and head on over to screamermagazine.com and check out the October issue and search for Operation Mindcrime Behind Door Number 1. And last but certainly not least, I want to thank everyone for joining me tonight for the special edition of the Metalhead Extreme Radio News Report. If you like the songs you heard during this program, they're all available through iTunes, Amazon, and Spotify, or by visiting OperationMindcrime.com. Closing us out tonight is the final track from the key, appropriately titled The Fall. This has been Jenn Mitchell of RockGasms signing off and saying, I hope the music keeps hitting you in all the right places.